I'm the French-Canadian sensation from the official GonnaGeek.com podcast, a proud member of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the one you're listening to now. The opinions expressed are those of each individual. Check out all other geeky podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com and get ready, because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
You are listening to the Starling Tribune, a podcast dedicated to the Arrow TV show.
This guy gets more airtime than the Kardashians, right?
This podcast is not produced or maintained by the CW, Warner Brothers Television, CTV, or DC Comics. All characters, situations, and stories are the properties of Time Warner. I am the Oracle, and this is your Tribune.
Welcome back to the Starling Tribune. I am Stargate Pioneer. Everyone calls me SP. I am the editor-in-chief for the Starling Tribune newsroom. And your reporters for this 5th episode of Season 5 of the Starling Tribune are Chris.
You can keep it up with the foreplay, but I'll never give you what you want.
Oh, you're such a tease, Chris. And Michelle.
Do people just walk into your secret base of operations?
Yes, all the time. There is not, it's like a fort that you do in the living room or a snow fort outside. Everybody just comes in. You can't keep everybody out. That's the way we roll in the Arrow Cave. Hey guys, this podcast is recorded on Thursday, November 3rd, 2016, live on geeks.live. And we are very much comic book enthusiasts, right, Chris?
Yeah, I read a lot of Star Wars right now, guys.
And Michelle.
Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman.
You posted that picture and I had no idea what you were talking about until I looked what dropped this week. Oh my gosh, you scored. That was awesome.
Yes. So I got like the 75th. They did like this 4-pack. I got that. I got like the 75th anniversary special. I have the Jill Thompson thing on order. And a trailer dropped today. It is amazing. That movie still looks so good. I'm so happy.
Yeah, I might actually try to snag a copy of it for my daughter, maybe for Christmas. I know she won't listen to this. We're all good here. All right, aside from the great comic book scores this week, tonight we'll be discussing this week's episode of Arrow, as well as news, interviews, articles, and announcements that have dropped in the last week that could impact future episodes of Arrow, as well as DC TV shows The Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, and we're always looking for that Constantine renewal.
Well, don't forget Vixen, too. We could spoil that. See?
Oh, that's
we
right.
Forgot
Vixen's
one. I gotcha. That's a gotcha right there.
I actually saw my first episode of Vixen on the CW Seed.
Very nice. I just hit my mic by accident.
It happens to me all the time because I talk with my hands. All of a sudden, boop. Oh, whoops.
Try to fix my mic flag and I screw things up. But guys, just a friendly reminder that we make a lot of speculations and guesswork during these shows based off of information the showrunners and actors have shared in different interviews, articles, and things like that. So we are throwing out wild speculation, but sometimes we are right as to what is going on. So consider yourselves warned. We might accidentally, inadvertently spoil you, and then we might later actually spoil you because we do geek out about the latest DC comics, so we could potentially spoil you guys on that as well.
A blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while.
Just once in a while, though.
If you're new to the show, thank you for searching us out on the internet and joining us. If you like our content, why don't you swing by our podcast network home at GonnaGeek.com, where you can find all of our past shows, plus a ton of other geeky videos, podcasts, and articles, all under the Gonna Geek Productions banner.
Thanks, guys. I think it's time to go ahead and get in the nuts and bolts and break down this current episode. Michelle, why don't you take it down for us?
Sure thing. This episode was called Human Target. This is Season 5, Episode 5. It aired Wednesday, November 2nd. Directed by Laura Besley. She's done 2 Arrow, 1 Stitchers, and 1 Unforgettable. Writers, Oscar Balderrama, 8 Arrow, 1 Drop Dead Diva, 2 Eli Stone, and Sarah Tarkoff, 6 Vixen, and 2 Arrow. So names we are familiar with.
These are newer sort of names to the comic book universe on the TV side. I say newer-ish because we have some experience there. But I just want to point out again that the cupboard was getting pretty thin with all these comic book shows exploding a couple years ago. And I think both CW, DC, and Marvel have done a great job of reloading into that staple. So we've got a lot of experience to ride on now, and I just can't wait for what they bring for the rest of this season, as well as for the rest of the DC TV shows. So this week, obviously, Human Target. What was the overall theme for this episode? Anybody want to take a guess as to what Human Target means?
Humans keep getting targeted. Yeah.
Well, over on Flash, they took care of that because they put trackers on everybody because everybody kept on getting kidnapped.
Spoiler alert. No, I'm joking. Man. We already gave that warning. We don't have to spoiler alert it.
That's as far as I've gotten in the Flash this season, by the way.
Well, the people who are being targeted, of course, Oliver by Church, Arrow by Prometheus, and, Chance calls himself the Human Target. And I also think, Renee, is the target of everybody's rescue efforts, and, Diggle helping him work through his PTSD sort of deal. So
you also have Tobias Church literally being a target for a throwing knife and getting killed.
True.
Rest in peace, Tyrese. Rest in peace.
Yeah, in the neck. I mean, oh man, there was no hammer that could have stopped that.
Look, let's be honest. Prometheus did not F around in this episode. He took out how many cops to take out Tobias Church at the end? Prometheus is a bad man.
Definitely. And Will Trevall, who played Chance, by the way, I think this was a very good use of his acting skills and his character, because the way he portrayed Human Target was very well done. I think he took what I saw of him, by the way, in Jessica Jones season 1, and he adapted it to almost more of a hero rather than an antagonist, even accidental antagonist, I will call him in Jessica Jones. And he actually took that forward and did amazing things. So I can't wait to see him back in some place, because I really enjoyed his acting for this, being the actual Human Target in this episode.
I have to admit, like all the press around it kind of made him seem he was going to be a little bit more prominent in the episode. So I was wanting to see more of him. I mean, that's how good of a job he did. I was hoping for more of him.
And really, you did see more of him. It was just not as Chance. It was as the other characters that he was playing as, right?
This is true.
He's a lot of prosthetics this episode. A lot of prosthetics.
Very Mission Impossible. Which one was all the mask?
All
was
of
it the
them.
First one? Oh, all of them.
It's a gimmick in all of them, basically.
Tom likes to put on the masks
and jump on couches.
And hang on to C-17s as they're taking off, right?
That was actually a pretty badass scene.
I have not seen that movie yet, but of course it's iconic because it was in all the trailers.
I'm waiting for them to try and recreate it in Arrow or something like that.
Well, we kind of did when he took the Arrow, Oliver, in the season premiere, and he shot the helicopter, right?
It's not a plane.
It's not really the same.
You guys are ditching Stephen Amell's helicopter wrangling.
Oh, that was the stunt doubles helicopter wrangling.
Steven does as many stunts as he can by himself. Come on.
Do you think they're going to insure him to do that stunt?
Sure, if it's on a set.
We weren't dissing that. It was just not the Tom Cruise hanging off the airplane.
Guys, if you are seriously going to go Tom Cruise over Stephen Amell,
no one ever said that.
We didn't say that. We're just saying your analogy, your comparison is not, helicopter.
But in doing so, you are defending Tom Cruise, and I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that.
Well, it's not like Stephen Amell couldn't kick his butt. Let's be honest.
I don't know, man. With all the training, the self-defense training that Tom's had to do over the years to do his own action scenes, because he does his own stunts.
But Stephen Amell is undefeated in the WWE.
Tom Cruise in the WWE. I'd pay to see that. I have not paid for any wrestling my entire life. I would pay $100 to watch Stephen Amell and Tom Cruise go at it.
Well, you wouldn't see Tom Cruise there because it's a lot harder to hide the lifts you're wearing in person when you're in a ring that's elevated.
Dude.
That's my Tom Cruise ditz I was looking for. Now we can move on.
Yeah,
What? He
talk
wears
about-
lifts.
So does Ben Stiller. But anyway, why don't we go to
How did this
fighting
happen?
in the show?
What the hell happened?
We're going to talk about the fighting in the show. And I have to say the fights were well choreographed. I really enjoyed them. The fights between the JV squad and whoever that villain was, I don't even know who that villain was amazing in the on the wharf or whatever on the bridge. And the fighting between Oliver and Chase, that is really good. The problem I have though is that the stunt double really did not look at all like the actor. And I've talked about it before, and it just takes me out when I'm looking at it. I'm like, these are amazing fights, but that guy, he doesn't even have the same body style. So I have a conundrum.
I really enjoyed Diggle coming back and standing on a plane while everyone shot at him and just not moving. He's like, psh, I don't care about your bullets. I'm going to shoot people.
Nice helmet, dude.
You know, it's better than the Dignito helmet we had.
It was. Matter of fact, it looked a lot like the Atom suit helmet. I was like, when did Atom get here?
It was a spare. Felicity had it in the closet.
I'm trying to figure out how to hybrid names theirs together. Would it be Datum?
It was stuck in the dresser. It was left over the dresser. She's like, here, Dig, you can have this. I just happen to have it. You go ahead, put some paint on it or something. Oh, Felicity. Michelle, what do you think about Oliver being accepted into our coveted Brodfa?
Only brothers. That was interesting. I have no name. I only have Bratva. But it was interesting that not everybody is on the Anatoly train. Not everybody's on board with having Oliver. Victor was not pleased to have this outsider join the family, because that's what it means. It means family.
You can kind of understand that they would be uncomfortable with an outsider, but there's also the fact that Anatoly disappeared for a few years because he was on the Amazo and he was captured. So there's a lot of uncertainty around them probably going, just where the hell have you been? What's been going on with you? You just come back all of a sudden and think you've got all this power still? There could be some element of that coming into play as well.
I think Victor's got some personal issues which might stem back to his appearances on Continuum, and he might be caught in some sort of weird time loop and not really understand what's going on.
Yeah, we'll go with that. That sounds feasible.
Because the actor, of course, was in Continuum, and he always kind of plays the quasi-bad guy with good intentions, so to speak. But I like seeing him. It was great seeing him on the screen. It was great seeing him devious. And I always kind of was scratching the back of my head, like, okay, so just anybody that can survive these trials can become Brodfa, even if they're from another country. They have no commonality with the group. I just don't understand why all of a sudden Oliver Queen is the favored son of the Brodfa when there has to be so many other local recruits or something like that. And
because he's Anatoly's boy. I mean, that's pretty much what it came down to. The whole reason he's able to do what he is because Anatoly is like, I owe you.
Pretty much. And he owes him enough to hire the human target to save his butt at the end.
That was a nice little twist, having the human target. The human target played a nice thread in here, going between the flashbacks and current day, and then using that connection of saying, oh, the human target came in to save Mayor Queen. That's how we found out that Oliver Queen, there's this picture of a dude that looks like him in Russia from 5 years ago, which should be relatively easy to refute going forward. But
it also brings up the fact that Oliver was not on the island for all 5 years, and that's pretty much going to be public knowledge really soon.
Well, I mean, if you're Oliver Queen, then you can be like, look, that guy looks like me, but it's not me. I was on an island. What do you want me to do?
Ooh.
You could just lie your butt off. Now the question is, do they go with that route?
True.
I don't know. Wait, Michelle, what do you think? How do you think they're going to handle this?
Well, it's that Susan Williams. So it depends, I think, on the source of the photo, like what is actually happening in the photo. Is it something like a mission he was on, or
The photo was them
something?
in the bar.
Yeah, but where did it come from? Who else is in there?
Came from Anatoly.
Yeah, so I don't know. It would be interesting. He can use the whole body double. He can, try to, but that's going to be difficult for him to come to terms with if it comes public.
I don't know.
And
In today's world, though, with Photoshop and things like that, if that's all she's got, now granted, I'm sure she's gonna end up digging up more. But if all they've got right now is a photo of a guy that looks like me in Russia, I'd be like, look, in today's world, there's Photoshop and these other things. I don't know what you guys want me to say. It wasn't me.
But if she goes digging, that would be digging into Bratva business. So would she be stirring up trouble that way?
Possibly. Then Anatoly can come clean this mess up, and maybe we get Anatoly in the present day, unless he dies in flashbacks and we don't know it yet.
No, he cannot die.
Maybe he's Prometheus. No, he's too small. I know it's not him.
Well, he could use lifts. He could, go over to Tom Cruise.
Yeah, he borrows them from his good buddy Tom.
Exactly.
Everybody knows Tom. Okay, so Susan has Oliver's number, and she seemed like she was really into Oliver at the time. But now, when she's getting this information, this juicy information, she's all about it. I don't think that woman has any good intentions whatsoever.
No. She just wants to get the scoop. We already saw that early on. She played Thea to get a scoop. All she's going to do is play Oliver, just a longer term play to get some kind of scoop. And we can tell the scoop is going to revolve something around his time in Russia.
Michelle, how do you see the relationship going forward between Susan and Oliver?
Well, I'm taken back to season 2 when Oliver and Isabel had sex, and then Isabel ended up being a traitor, and so that's probably what Oliver's going to do. Felicity has her rebound, so Oliver needs his rebound, and then she's going to reveal that it was just all for a story or something like that. That's probably how it's going to go down.
What do you think about the Human Target's sort of strategy of trying to get 1 month without any negative press against him? I don't see that as working at all. I don't see any deal being made between a political figure and the press really working out. Of course, okay, this election notwithstanding, but I mean, usually that just does not happen.
There is nothing legally binding to this agreement. It was not even a gentleman's agreement where a handshake is established to do anything. It was, hey, leave me alone for a month and we'll see what we can do. So there's literally nothing stopping her from 2 days later putting out a hit piece on Oliver Queen.
I definitely see that happening. Okay, so Oliver Queen's mayor, and we go through all the dichotomy where the bad guys learn his name, but he's still being the mayor, and he's doing an effective job, although it really wasn't him doing it. But how do we rate him? Do we need to get, during the summer we did the Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., we did the Legends of Tomorrow, Captain Rip Hunter scale. Do we need to start bringing out the Oliver Queen mayor scale?
Ooh.
That would be good.
I gotta come up with some funny mayors, though.
All right, so 1 to 10, let's skip the funny mayor names unless you can think of one. 1 to 10, how do you rate Oliver Queen's mayoral performance this episode, Michelle?
Well, he's a lot better than Mayor Quimby. So even though it was chance in the meetings and stuff, he said, I become you. I know you more than you know you. I would say a 3. If we're going to go, is it 1 to 5 or 1 to 10?
It's 1 to 10, wasn't it? With Captain Rip Hunter.
It was.
I would do a 5 then.
Okay, Chris, what do you think?
He is Mayor McCheese. He gets a 3 because he didn't do anything real. He was fake. It was the fake guy that did all the work for him this week. He gave a cool speech at the end.
But he had Thea's help, though.
Right. And that's my conundrum for this particular episode, because it wasn't actually him, but the Human Target was acting like him. Although I will rate it, just going back to that final speech, And he gives this great speech about what he did, why he did it. He was able to do these great things because of it. And oh, by the way, on the side, we were able to get this thing passed, but there was no context to it. Okay, so you got this rezoning thing passed. What does that mean? Does that mean that some more bad people can move into this city and start doing their bad things, more corporate greed, or is this for good housing development like it was? There was no context. It was just, hey, we passed rezoning thing. So based on that part of the speech, like, oh, by the way, I'll go 4. Possibly 3.
The other thing we need to consider on this is our point of view from doing this. Am I doing this as my point of view as someone who watched the show and knows how everything works, or am I doing it as my point of view of a person in Star City who just saw the actions the mayor took? And so basically, I have no idea that Mayor Queen was replaced with a body double when he had his behind-the-scenes talks.
No, but it came out in the end when he gave the speech, and
right.
That's why
but it wasn't the fact that the guy is the one that made those deals, though. I mean, he didn't say that part of it. He said I was replaced, but not necessarily I was replaced and he made a bunch of deals for me.
Right. But my point was that he made the deal and he was like, oh, by the way, this is the deal, but he didn't explain why. And oh, by the way, for the past day or so, I'm thinking the mayor is dead. So, oh my gosh, I'm moving out of Starling. I can't take it anymore. I'm moving out.
Well, if people haven't left yet, they're idiots. Let's be honest. Every year, this city just gets wrecked more and more.
Yeah, but he also called church. You know, he formed the ACU, apparently. And he also placed the credit of church being captured on the ACU. He didn't bring the arrow or anything in there, so he did that. And his actions led to church's underlanes being taken in other cities. So I think the 5 is good.
All right. I'd take him down at least one more point because of the, oh, by the way, and not putting it in context. I mean, I know it's because they didn't have time for the speech and everything during the episode, but still, I mean, you just don't, oh, by the way, that just get away. You need to be more specific, give more facts sort of thing, not just, hey, we passed legislation. Okay, good. That's what you're supposed to do on a daily basis in City Hall, right?
At least they actually passed some legislation. Must be nice.
He did work. He did work. He didn't miss any meetings.
Until he got shot.
That's a good doctor's excuse right there. Mr. Queen was shot. He cannot work.
And he had Quentin Lance, who got to be mayor for 5 minutes.
That's right. He did. And so now Starling City has a drunk mayor.
Just like Springfield.
He's been sober.
He has been, but that was the way that everybody was taking it in the press, was that, oh my gosh, we have an alcoholic or recovering alcoholic as the mayor. I don't know if people were ready to accept that or not. He's barely been accepted the deputy mayor right now, but it didn't last long. So maybe because of his handling of the crisis that he's moved up favorably in the polls in Starling City. Star City. This is Star City now, right?
It is.
We might have to change the sign on the door from Starling Tribune to Star City's Tribune at some point in time.
We do own the domain.
But that would be work to change like art. So I don't know.
Just put an X through Ling and we'll just call it.
Why not? Why
The
not?
Star Tribune. Yeah.
Just like a big line, red X.
Or just drop a city over the Ling.
We have saved the city.
I mean, I could do it in Photoshop in like 10 seconds. It would be about as pretty as I described it. Because I have no Photoshop skill.
I can't even open Photoshop, so your skills outweigh mine.
Well, damn, I sound like an expert in comparison.
You are. Let's talk about the other expert. We talked about it a little bit before, but Diggle, he comes in, he helps Wild Dog, and I am surprised that he's actually out and about. I thought he would stay in the shadows a little bit longer.
Oh, it's tough to stay in the shadows. He's always been a man of action. Asking him to hide in a hideout forever and do nothing, I don't think that's something that would work for that man. And I do also have to say, I'd forgotten just how jacked David Ramsey was until I saw him wearing that t-shirt, and I was like, dude, his arms are massive.
Oh, gosh. We got a shirtless scene with David Ramsey. I'm a happy woman.
He wasn't even actually hitting the bag, right? It was just a reference that he was hitting the bag, right? Or did he do it and I just didn't remember it?
I don't know. He was shirtless.
That's
But-
all that matters.
Please
But-
send your Diggle shirtless gifts to Michelle. Michelle at gonnageek.com. Send your Diggle shirtless gifts there.
Exactly. But he sees being Spartan as a path to redemption. He says this, that's why he agreed to be broken out of prison, is that, okay, I will pay my penance. I will redeem myself by being part of the team. And then, working his Jedi magic on Renee to help him through his trauma this episode. So it's really good just to see him, take a leadership role.
Right.
Well, he is the number 2 guy. He pretty much always has been with Oliver, and with all these recruits there now, he's got to be a little bit more of the number 2 guy. When Oliver's not there, he needs to make it so that these guys defer to him.
Right.
So if Felicity's mommy, Oliver's daddy, that means it's Uncle Diggle.
Uncle Dig.
It's all about the Uncle Dig.
Who
I liked
Artemis has a crush on.
Well, I think most people do.
Yeah. He's impressed me, John Ramsey, since the show started. And I remember seeing season 1 Paley Fest panel, and he's like, "Hey man, I'm not even in the comics. I'm just glad to be here right now. Please don't kill me."
Man,
And
it's mind blowing when you see him in something else. I was watching an old episode of The West Wing. It was something from season 7, and David Ramsey shows up on the Matthew Santos campaign bus. I'm like, Diggle, you look so tiny. Why are you so thin and skinny?
I saw him on something. I don't remember what it was, but it was really early on in his career. And he was in some little known TV movie or something like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, he is just scrawny. I know he was in Con Air.
He got jacked to do Arrow. That's what it comes down to. And you go and look at some of his earlier appearances, you're like, whoa. Him and Stephen Amell both got jacked for their roles.
Right.
They have a really good team to help them do that.
That's true too.
And they have a lot of workout stuff available to them, obviously, because, well, they have to be in the gym 12 hours a day when they're not filming. But that's Diggle, one of the OG Team Arrow. There's also Felicity. Guys, I got to talk a little bit about Felicity here because this has been bugging me for a while. I have been silent on this for quite a while. I've probably said a little bit of what I want to say throughout the intervening months, possibly the last year or so. I was in love with Felicity at the beginning of the show. She was exactly what the show needed, kind of the quirky, quippy tech person that could just come in and just lighten up the scene, and Oliver would stare very viciously at her. And I like that dynamic. Of course, then we got Felicity and things kind of fell apart. She has grown as an actor and as the character in the show, and it's just not the same for me. So she still has the same sort of quippy lines, but they're not as impactful. They're always brushed off. They're always, nobody really laughs. I guess Curtis gets her, but nobody else really does. Almost misappropriate timing of her saying this stuff. But for me, I kind of like it, but it just falls flat on the screen. And I don't necessarily think that she is the same character that I fell in love with season 1. Obviously isn't. There's been a lot of character growth, but I don't necessarily think she's my favorite anymore. And I hate to say this, but I think that's true. What do you guys think about Felicity now?
I don't know what her role really is other than to show up and do tech stuff. She doesn't seem as integral to things anymore.
I think part of it is when Diggle came into the Arrow Cave, he said, wow, this place has gotten crowded. And I think that's part of it. We have Mayor Oliver, and with that we have Thea and Lance. We have Arrow, and then there's Felicity, and now Diggle's back. And now there's the new recruits where we have Renee, who's had a lot of character development these first 5 episodes. And then Curtis, who was from last season, he's just kind of there. And then, oh yeah, by the way, there's Artemis, who finally got to shoot an arrow this episode. So, you know, there's a lot, and I think part of it is, you know, they put Felicity with Oliver, then they broke them up, and now it's like, what's the relationship? And I think that's part of like what this episode was about. Had a little thread in there, so I think they really just need to, because she's had some moments earlier this season where she did take charge when Oliver was gone, and she is helping train the recruits. But you do have a good point about just how does she fit now?
Yeah, it's something that I'm going to watch going into the mid-season finale here, and we'll see where it stands right there to make a determination for the rest of the season. But I am watching that character closely because I don't want it to become a Laurel type situation where she gets lost and then gets thrown by the wayside. And I just don't think that the show can do that with her and still survive, because there's a lot of fans for Felicity. I think there's more fans for Felicity than there were for Laurel.
Quite easily so.
Yeah, we'll just see how that goes. Okay, let's talk about the magical healing powers, obviously, that the Arrow Cave must have, because all these people that get almost mortally wounded are all of a sudden capable of going back out and fighting the next hour. What's up with that?
Cocaine's a hell of a drug. That's what's up with that.
I forgot about Oliver's chest of drugs.
I mean, he does have magic herbs from Lian Yu, but
they're not magic.
No, they're not really. But in all seriousness, I mean, it's just par for the course with most of the superhero shows in general, is that you knock them down for a while and then they heal much quicker than they should, even if they are just normal humans. So I think that's really all it was here, was the convenience of plot.
They were not just beaten. Curtis was stabbed, and in the beginning he was all, you know, like injured and acting injured, which okay. But then Renee actually got stabbed too, and nobody seemed to mention it.
It was just a little poke.
Oh, yeah, sure. Could
I'm
have
pretty
hit
sure the knife for Renee went in farther than it did for Curtis. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So no, you've got a point. Because it's only been 20 hours. I thought it was a little bit more because Curtis was back on his feet, but then it was like, oh yeah, it was only 20 hours. So everybody was back at it. You got a good point there, SP.
I think Cisco just made them something to help with it, and problem solved.
Now, Cisco's not exactly the bio guy.
Well, Caitlin did then.
Okay, thanks.
So you're saying there's like nanites or something?
Ooh, yeah, we did see Adam did use nanites at one point in time, so that's possible.
Just infected all the superheroes.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be bad if that got out to the supervillains, though. Oh, we don't want that.
Oh, that's how we get Ra's al Ghul back. No, I don't mean it. Stop. No one believe me who's listening to this podcast. It was a terrible idea.
A little bit later, but for the meantime, let's talk about Ragman. The kid is amazing. You get in front of him with those rags and he could just flip you into next week. I mean, that's the ultimate suit. I love that suit. He's got great powers.
And he could take bullets.
I know.
Is that going to get old quick?
I think it has.
What kind of weaknesses does he have?
Fire, probably.
Well, if you take a look,
he survived nuclear bombs.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's any weaknesses.
I'm going to
bad dry
consult
cleaning.
Yeah, there you go. I'm going to consult the Googles right now.
All right.
Forgetting the suit?
Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, which happens, I'm sure. Let's talk about Prometheus, because Prometheus comes by, gives Church 2 warnings, finally kills him in the end, and a bunch of good cops too. So that kind of hits into Oliver's ACU. That's kind of a bad thing. But we still haven't learned who Prometheus really is. Last week, we talked about 9 possible suspects that Michelle had. Michelle, you have consolidated your list. You want to run down a few more possibilities?
Well, okay. So Tommy Merlin, we've talked about. I have Robert Queen, again, Flashpoint. Adrian Chase, but I think he's more likely to become Vigilante. Billy Malone. It's like he was awfully convenient that he knew in that episode that Prometheus was after Arrow. Helena Bertinelli, but I would rather have her as a freed huntress or head of the Bertinelli family. Isabel Rochev, McKenna Hall, Shadow.
Ooh.
I actually have Slade Wilson. If he came out as Deathstroke right away, then he wouldn't be able to operate in the shadows and, mess with Oliver. And then I have a new one, and that's Talia al Ghul. There's news this week that she's been cast. We'll get in that later. So
that's quite the healthy list there. The one thing I have against a bunch of these people is just the body style of Prometheus. It's big and bulky. It's broad shoulders, and I just don't see any of the women really fitting into that costume. Now, it could be armor that's beefing it out, so maybe I shouldn't discount body styles. Robert Queen would be interesting from a Flashpoint perspective, as would Tommy, and we've discussed that already. Shadow also, wow, that would be interesting. Now, Slade Wilson, that would be an excellent callback. It could be that they've thrown us so far off the trail because of his comments earlier this summer, maybe trying to discount it, and then all of a sudden it is. That would be a big snow job that DC TV would have pulled off. And kudos if they do, but I don't know if it's really that transparent enough to do. I don't know. I don't know who it is, and I'm just excited to find out. Tommy is probably at the top of my list right now. I don't know. Chris, did you find out anything about the rag dude?
It seems like fire is one of his weaknesses because you could set the suit on fire. But the comics powers are a little different than what they're portraying in the show because there's a lot more mystical aspect to it from what Comic Find said. But
yeah, in Comic Find, he's supposed to in the comics, he takes the souls, right?
Yeah, he can consume souls and then reshape and use the powers of any of those souls he's consumed. But going back to Prometheus, I think it's Michael Dorn because for some reason Prometheus's voice sounds like Michael Dorn to me. I don't know why. I texted you guys that when I was watching the episode. I was like, is it just me or does Prometheus sound like Michael Dorn?
I watched it after you texted that. I was like, that it could possibly be.
It's Mr. Worf is Prometheus. It is a new way for Klingons to gain honor, is to come and defeat superheroes in their own universes.
What if it's Victor? We haven't taken that into account. It could be Victor. From the Brodfa?
Maybe.
I don't know if he would actually do his own work.
I'm kind of leaning towards the fact it's going to be someone that we really haven't met, and that's what makes it more interesting. Is it's something that Oliver Queen screwed up in season 1 or 2 that caused tragedy for this person, and they wanted vengeance, and they have gone and turned themselves into someone else, something else over the years to come and get their vengeance.
It's going to be a very tight rope to walk with Flashpoint. You see, this whole Flashpoint thing,
Flashpoint's the ultimate cop-out for everything at this point in time. If something doesn't make sense, you can make, Flashpoint.
I have issues with that, which we'll probably talk about later.
Yeah, Diggle might have issues with it too eventually.
Yeah, I know.
But I really hope it's someone that, first off, is on my list because I would like to call it. But I hope it's someone that we know. Even if I'm wrong, I don't want it to be some new dude. I want it to be, like next week's episode, Prometheus is supposed to go on this more of a killing spree and everything. And it's just, I really want it to be someone we know, someone we can go and we can look back and go, okay, we understand why, to make it richer, to make it have more layers.
I don't think we're going to find out who Prometheus is until after the mid-season finale.
Or maybe the mid-season finale.
Well, the mid-season finale I thought was roughly the crossover. I could be wrong.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
Lots of good things coming at us. Michelle, do you have anything else for the episode before we transition off?
No, I'm good.
Chris?
No, I'm good.
All right, we have a great episode next week, which is So It Begins. Michelle, you want to tell everybody about So It Begins?
Yes. When Prometheus ups his killing spree, Oliver searches for connections between the victims. Felicity and Curtis discover the victims have a mysterious link to Oliver's past, and this new secret could upend his new team. Meanwhile, Thea has a heart-to-heart with Lance, and Felicity considers telling Malone the truth about her work. Director is John Beering, and the writers are Wendy Merkel and Brian Ford Sullivan. So we got the big gun on this episode.
Yes, we do, and it should be good. So looking forward to that. And in the past, we've had an article on comicbook.com, I believe, to run down the Easter eggs. There was no article that we found on the Easter eggs for Arrow this week, so we kind of just made a couple up. So Michelle, you want to start us off?
Yeah, Hub City and Bloodhaven were referenced again. Church had all of his power. He took them over, but now he's lost power there because he be dead.
He's just a little dead. He might get better one day. You never know. He might just stumble into a Lazarus pit, or Barry might go back in time again and screw everything else up. Who knows?
Yep. And that's about it, unless we want to talk about like Jedi Master and Padawan with Diggle and
you did bring up that trope of the whole superhero magical healing ability.
And you herbs, that do it. That's all it is.
That's right.
Healthy living in a shot of vodka.
Or as we've discovered in Arrow Year 1, definitely drugs.
Absolutely drugs. Da comrade.
You guys ready to get into the news for the week?
News.
All right, we got a full news plate tonight. I'm going to turn it over to our reporter, Michelle, to take us down with Dolph Lundgren.
Yes, we get our first look at Dolph Lundgren as the villainous Konstantin Kovar in Arrow promo stills. Next week, Oliver comes face to face with Russian baddie Konstantin Kovar, and he's wearing a suit, and he's got a drink in his hand and a cigarette, and I can't believe, but Dolph Lundgren, dear sir, you have aged well. You look very fine. And it's going to be one of those things where Michelle's like, he's the bad guy, but he looks so good. But he's a bad guy, but he looks so good. And I'm going to have that problem.
Yeah, it's going to be fun seeing him on the screen. Chris, you have a little issue about Flashpoint.
So we did talk about this before. It's going to be Diggle's reactions to Flashpoint. It was confirmed via an article in comicbookresources.com that Diggle is in fact going to confront Barry about the consequences of Flashpoint. The article says, as to whether or not Diggle will confront Barry over the fact, Ramsey added, yes, the 8th episode of Arrow is going to have a lot of things coming out of it, and that's going to be one of them. Ramsey also weighed in on how Diggs going to react to the idea of an alien invasion, which takes place over the course of the 4-show crossover later this fall. And he says, how is he going to react to seeing a woman fly across the horizon in a skirt? That's an even better question, he shared. All of this flips Dig out, but I think he's slowly getting a grip that this is the world he now lives in, and that's part of his journey as well this season.
I'm loving what they're doing with Diggle. I mean, I hated that he was stuck in prison and he's a fugitive, but his character development is definitely progressing so far this season. I'm digging it. I'm digging the Diggle.
I see what you did there.
There you go. So, Michelle, we've talked a lot about vigilantes. We even had a Hood reference in this episode, which we didn't mention before, but Mel has a little thing to say about vigilantism. How do you say it?
Mel calls Oliver's vigilantism a last resort. Asked what he thought of Oliver's enduring legacy as Green Arrow, and Mel told CBR he's very tough on the new recruits, but then, in private moments, speaking with people he holds in close confidence, he sort of extols their virtues. So I think that he's proud, but again, being a vigilante, and I think that he would agree with this, is the last resort, not the first resort. In a perfect world, Star City wouldn't need a Green Arrow. So I think the proliferation of them, while heartening in some sense and encouraging, is also a reminder that he hasn't gotten the job done. As to whether or not this job could ever truly be done, he's added, of course, when the show is done, he'll have gotten the job done. So
Awesome.
no Arrow season 8, Oliver at home drinking tea.
It'd be vodka.
I still pine for the Battlestar Galactica post show where you have Admiral Adama fireside chats in his stone cottage on top of that hill. I still think that would be an awesome show to have. It would get a ton of ratings. What do you think, Chris? You're a big BSG fan.
I would pay good money to hear Edward James almost read the phone book, so this sounds like something I would watch.
Michelle, you and I had a chance to see him on stage at C2E2 earlier this year. Would you pay for a show like that?
Oh, definitely. Like I would pay for another premium channel if I needed to.
There you go. So Edward James Olmos, that is your cue to give us Admiral Adama's fireside chats. Now I'm going to move on into the next article myself. Wendy Miracle calls Arrow's 100th episode a love letter to the show. Now this is a reminder that the 100th Arrow episode is coming up in just a couple of weeks. Wendy Miracle spoke to Comic Book Resources about finding a balance between Arrow's legacy and the crossover event, the future of the show, Green Lantern's Easter eggs, female supervillains, and more. About the 100th episode, she said, quote, "It's the 100th, and we want it to be very nostalgic and very much about the DNA of Arrow," unquote. Of the show, when it started, we feel very lucky. We found a way to balance the fact that we do now live in a world where there are metas and there are aliens, which I have a question about that because technically Supergirl isn't part of the universe, but we'll just let that slide right now. Greg Berlanti came up with this brilliant way of accomplishing that and making it very much a love letter to the fans and to the show. And thank you very much for taking the work into making the 100th episode as good as it's going to be, hopefully. And I can't wait to see it. What do you guys think?
It's episode 100. It should be good. I remember when Smallville did their 100s and 200s, and they were both pretty good.
I'm pretty sure it'll live up to the hype.
Yeah, I'm really hoping it does. I remember Stargate's 100 and 200th as well, and those were awesome episodes. And I remember How I Met Your Mother's 200th episode, which is where the show should have stopped. And that's a story for another podcast. In the meantime, Michelle, take us into some father-daughter dynamics.
Well, we've actually talked about our insights on Lance and Thea in an article called "Lance and Thea Will Develop a Father-Daughter Dynamic." At the celebration of Arrow's 100th episode, Paul Blackthorne, who plays Quentin, told CBR that Thea's offer of help will lead the two to develop a father-daughter relationship as the season moves forward. He said, "We both felt the characters wouldn't realize that was happening for quite a long time. It's not like, oh, she feels like my daughter. It's quite unspoken, but of course it does certainly feel like that. It's like I recognize this feeling, but it's with somebody else. It's been an interesting playing on that dynamic with her." So we got confirmation that we are going to see them have this sort of relationship.
That's awesome. Brought to you first by the Starling Tribune newsroom. You can find that at gonnageek.com.
We did say at the intro, sometimes we're right. It happens sometimes, guys.
Broken clock is right twice a day.
Right. So let's talk the next story here. There's a question now. Is Mark Guggenheim teasing an appearance of The Question in an upcoming episode of Arrow? For those that aren't familiar, The Question is a superhero based out of Hub City in the comics and in the Justice League cartoons. It doesn't look like The Question's coming to Star City, but just maybe Team Arrow might be headed to Hub City instead. Guggenheim wrote, "Headed out of town." The caption was attached to an image advertising Hub City's premium development potential. At the bottom right-hand corner of the advertisement, fans can see that the advertisement is associated with Arrow's 11th episode this season. So stay tuned for episode 11. Something with Hub City is going to come into play, and there's some wishful thinking they might find a way to bring in The Question, or at the very least, maybe just do some references to him.
I'm just checking really quick at the list of episodes, and the 11th episode is officially titled now Second Chances.
Interesting.
Cool.
Michelle, what do you got for us with the Walking Dead crossover with Arrow?
Well, it's not so much a crossover.
Aw.
Wouldn't that be nice? That's the way both shows should end. Fast forward, Arrow comes in and saves Rick. Heard it here first. And the Walking Dead actress Juliana Harkavy is joining Arrow. She will have a recurring role as Tina Bolin, a detective formerly of Central City. Bolin is brash yet tactful, tough, speaks her mind, and is not the easiest person to impress. She also has a problem with vigilantes. Her character will join in the back half of the season.
Be good to see her on another show. And talking about actors who I love to see on shows, Chris, you got another one for us, don't you?
That is correct. Arrow has cast the role of Talia al Ghul, going to the actor Alexa. I'm going to screw up her last name, Doig. You might know her from V, Stargate SG-1, and Continuum. She now has the role of Talia al Ghul, Variety has reported. She will be showing up in the 10th episode of Season 5. And to try and tie this all back in, like we have of all our other Easter eggs and stuff, she is married to actor Michael Shanks, who was Daniel Jackson in Stargate SG-1, who was also Hawkman in Smallville. So yes, superhero stuff runs in the family there.
You know, that's good because Michael Shanks died quite a bit in Stargate. So she's pretty down with that comic book trope of characters dying and then coming back to life.
And he died in Smallville.
Did not know that.
Yep.
I'm not
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, I'm not an avid Smallville watcher. I mean, you're not really spoiling anything for me because I doubt I'll ever go back and watch it. But
it's all on Hulu now. If you really get the urge, you can watch a few good episodes here and there.
just a few good episodes. That's awesome. That wraps up our talk about Arrow news for the week. However, we do have some general DC TV news. Michelle, why don't you start us off?
Yes, this week, a short film called Sidekick, featuring stars from Arrow, Flash, and Once Upon a Time. It is 15 minutes. It is really good. You know, have your tissues handy. I recommend everyone watching it.
I might have to go check that out.
Yeah, I definitely have to go check that out. Chris, you have some comic book money news.
Let's talk about cash, y'all, because I love me some cash. DC Comics TV series are estimated to generate $1 billion a year in revenue. And in earnings conference call on Wednesday, Time Warner CEO Jeff Bukes revealed the DC TV series generated a combined $1 billion in revenue annually for Time Warner. That's a crap ton of money. I'm sorry, a metric crap ton of movie.
That's a space metric crap ton of money. Wow. $1 billion.
Yeah, it's not just the show, like the actual airing. It's also like the deals with Netflix. It's the DVDs, Blu-rays, any sort of other like licensing material. But that is still a staggering amount of money.
Does that include...
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, I wonder if that includes the advertising dollars off of the app and things like that, because they do put everything for free on the app, just commercial supported.
Yeah, I was on the treadmill earlier and I watched Arrow on the treadmill and then I deleted it from the DVR and I was thinking, you know, maybe I should watch it again before we podcast. And I was thinking, well, I deleted it from the DVR. I can always bring it up on the app later. So thank you very much, CW, for making the shows available on your app. I really do appreciate that. But getting back to the $1 billion, that is interesting because the relatively low ratings of the shows, like in the twos, then justify keeping them around because of all the revenue that it generates and the name brand recognition and so on and so forth. So I think that means that shows that might normally get canceled, say like Legends of Tomorrow, which did not get phenomenal ratings in season 1, have a better chance of staying on longer because of the general revenue that everybody gets, which leads us then into the next news story. Michelle, you got some rating numbers to run us down.
Yeah. Tuesday night ratings war. Flash hits new low, still beats Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The early ratings for Tuesday are out, and if the numbers hold steady, CW's The Flash will have hit an all-time low with 2.71 million viewers and a 0.9 rating in the 18 to 49 demographic, coveted by advertisers for its purchasing power. That's still better than the once mighty Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., however, which seems to have settled into a 0.8 rating with 2.52 million viewers, even despite the recent addition of Ghost Rider. And just so you know how far S.H.I.E.L.D. has fallen, when it debuted in its first season, it had like 12 million viewers. it started off. It did taper off to like 5 to 7 by the end, but now it's in it. I know it's in its 5th season, but wow.
That's what happens
So
when you kill
networks,
Grant Ward, man. Don't
I
kill
know.
Ward.
He was the downfall of the show. So network shows, from what I've determined in this time period in the mid 20 teens, you got to get what Michelle was saying, about 5 to 7 to be considered viable, because that's a lot of money that you're spending to produce those shows to be on primetime TV. Unfortunately, I took a look at the ratings for last night's Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. for this season 4 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It started off with 3.44, and it just has dropped. It went to a low of 2.34. It has gone slightly back up to 2.43, but it is still not in the 5 to 7. And these are the sort of ratings that we saw with Agent Carter before it was canceled. So I'm thinking, unless there's some major movement in ABC Marvel to keep this show on primetime TV, especially with the Netflix show successes, that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. might be seeing its last season, versus the DC TV shows, which are fine with ratings like that. So it's something to keep your eyes on if you're like either shows, either the DC TV shows or the Marvel show on ABC. So we'll just see. And don't forget that ABC nixed Marvel's Most Wanted. There was a couple other shows that they wanted to go forward with, and they didn't, unless they really bring in some powerful names on a regular basis, like Tony Stark, like Thor, like Star-Lord. I have a feeling that Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is going to take a dive way before these DC TV shows are, and I did not think that at all when this whole thing started.
So I see Steven in the chat room has asked, is this the beginning of the superhero fade? I would say not necessarily. I think there might be a little bit of fatigue with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. just because it's tough to tie that into everything at large. But you got to remember, the CW is playing a different game than ABC is when it comes to ratings for their superhero shows. The CW has made a point of putting that app out there, making it easy for people to consume their shows after the fact. It's not all ratings driven based off what comes across in the Nielsen boxes, but also how many people download the episode via their app, or how many people go and buy it from Amazon and iTunes. That's what they're looking at, because they're trying to appeal to a younger demographic. So that's where the CW is a little safer with their stuff, is that they don't have to get as big a ratings because A, they're not ABC, and B, they're encouraging people to go and consume it in other ways afterwards.
And I would also say that Marvel has seen success on the Netflix side of things with Jessica Jones, with Daredevil, with
Luke Cage.
Luke Cage, and they're going to get the Defenders. They have seen a lot of success with that, versus having a primetime TV show with a lot of special effects in it, like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So I don't think it's necessarily fade. I think you have to place it appropriately. And let's face, like Chris, like you said, a lot of people have cord cut, so they're only watching things via Netflix, via Hulu and the CW app. So perhaps that's the venue that we start seeing not only the superhero TV shows, but sci-fi shows and anything that's effects heavy, like Timeless, for instance, even on the NBC network right now. So that's my answer to that. Michelle, do you have any thoughts?
Well, first I heard Timeless actually got picked up for the season, so good news for there. Also, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is not really a superhero show. I mean, I know they're trying to introduce the Inhumans and the Ghost Rider thing, because he's not an Inhuman. They've made that clear. It's just, like you said, they're not getting any sort of, big people to be on that show. So it's just, it's kind of clunky trying to tie that show in with the movies. I think that's where Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has unfortunately suffered.
To be fair, I just want to point out that even the NFL has seen dramatic ratings drop this year. And honestly, one of the reasons, not the biggest reason that I saw a study for, but one of the reasons was the election. And I think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is suffering from that same thing, where you either have people that don't want to watch it or are intensely watching it on a daily basis. This is the weirdest election I have ever known. And it might be the weirdest election that this country, the United States of America, has ever seen, and it's affecting a lot of things. So perhaps that's part of the low ratings. I don't think so, though, but I don't know. I just had to throw that out there to be fair to everybody. All right, that's it for the news. We're going to move on to some feedback. Michelle, what do you got for us on Twitter?
Well, as you know, I live tweet not only just Arrow, but Supergirl and Flash. And what I do with Legends, because we're prepping for the podcast, what I do is I watch Legends right after Supergirl. But I've gotten some feedback. During Supergirl, I tweeted only Roulette wouldn't be ashamed about wearing the dress from the night before, because it's a beautiful red dress, but she wears it 2 days in a row. Many people enjoyed that and liked it and retweeted. Thank you very much. And when I tweeted with Arrow, there's that scene where Oliver and Felicity are in the mayor's office and they have that moment. And I tweeted, oh my God, just have sex on the desk already. And at Love for Delina liked that. And, you know, thank you very much. Because it was that moment. And it's like I had season, like one of the things when I live tweet, I do hop on the feed and see how other fans are reacting. And a few of us were like, oh my God, it's season 3 again. When it comes to them. So, yep.
That's right. And once again, Michelle is live tweeting all the DC shows on our Twitter account at Starling Tribune. Please come and check that out. And talking about the other DC TV shows, we got some other podcasts on the network that cover geeky things like the DC TV shows. Chris, I know you've got one show in particular that you're just teaming at the microphone to tell us about.
Yes, it's not as if there weren't only 3 shows that were update on the spreadsheet for me to pick from. So I'm going to shamelessly go after one of the shows that I'm on because 2 out of the 3 had me on them. I like to remind folks each week we are part of a network here on the Starling Tribune. It's the Gonna Geek Network. It's a variety of different awesome, geeky, nerdy podcasts that join up together and spread our geekery over the internet. And each week here on the show, we like to try and highlight one specific podcast. And this week I want to talk to you guys about episode 233 of the All Things Good and Nerdy podcast, entitled AMC is Not Your Parent. The show opens with the unequivocal fact that the Rocky Horror remake on Fox was terrible. Anthony weighs in on the controversy surrounding the premiere of The Walking Dead. Chris geeks out over Elon Musk's latest press conference, and Willie confronts some strange legalities and opinions surrounding actions within virtual reality. So there's a variety of different things being discussed in this latest episode of All Things Good and Nerdy. Go check it out, and all the other awesome shows on the network over at GonnaGeekNetwork.com. But all that being said, I think we are going to start wrapping up the show. Thank you to all the people that watched live and participated in the Geeks.live chat. I know I saw Suncast in there. I saw Steven in there. And there were probably some other folks that I missed in there. So sorry if I did miss you guys. And thank you to everyone who has downloaded the podcast, watched one of the replays, be it on Spreaker or on YouTube, things like that.
If you're listening to this, we really appreciate you downloading and listening to the podcast or watching us on YouTube. Go tell other listeners that they can join in live on Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on www.geeks.live. That is an actual web address. Stephen was able to grab the .live extension, so we are using it. And I just want to say thank you very much to our video editor, Chris, for doing this because it's a lot of work. And I also want to say thank you to all the fans of the Starling Tribune. We really appreciate you guys sticking with us through the 5 seasons so far. And don't forget, we are still looking at different options to hang out after the show. So if you have any great suggestions, let us know, because we miss our blab post-show opportunity with fans that we had last year.
You can watch the next live show on the Gonna Geek Network over on geeks.live. The next live show on the network is Better Podcasting, Friday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. And don't forget to rate, view, and subscribe over on iTunes. Like us on Facebook and YouTube, and badger us on Twitter. You can find all of our contact information on the Gonna Geek Network at GonnaGeekNetwork.com, where you can check out our forums and other shows. If you want to share your thoughts, head on over to our Facebook page, send in a tweet, or you can call us at 612-888-CAVE. That's 612-888-2283.
Well, guys, that's been another great episode. I think it's going to wrap it up for this week. Any last words as we sign off and then try and open things up for other folks to join us later. Let's start with at Stargate Pioneer.
Hashtag Amel doesn't need lifts.
Well played. Well played. At Michelle Ely.
Hashtag David Ramsey's chest.
Well played. And I am at the Chris Farrell with hashtag We Get Talia al Ghul. Oracle, I think we're done here.
This was the Starling Tribune. You can leave us feedback at gonnageek.com or check out our archive at starlingtribune.com. Visit gonnageek.com for more podcasts. Music by Kevin MacLeod can be found at incompetech.com. This podcast is not produced or maintained by the CW, Warner Brothers Television, CTV, or DC Comics. All characters, stories, and situations are the property of Time Warner. No infringement is intended. We will see you for the next episode of CW's Arrow.